College Basketball Live is on the air. Let's get right into things in the Big Ten. We're going to stay Illinois and Penn State. And, well, I don't want to give it away, but I'll give it away. Jalen Pickett was the story. 41 points, 15 of 20 shooting, and 8 assists.
Well, he's such a hard dude to guard because he can knock down the three ball. He can play in the post as a guard. 24 of his 41 in the first half.
He can back you down. He has a little like that Villanova back-down game. He's also a terrific passer because when he backs you down, he draws a double team, kicks it out to open people, and you know the Penn State's got terrific perimeter shooters. He had 8 assists in this game off of double teams.
93-81, Penn State sweeps the series of Illinois. Well, in recent years, it's been hard for Big Ten opponents to win in Piscataway. Not the case tonight for Nebraska.
Keisei Tominaga, who usually comes off the bench, is actually in the starting lineup. He had 15 of his 22 in the second half.
Derek Walker, I think, is really playing at a high level. This is back-to-back wins for this Nebraska team. Nebraska is a team that is continuing to get better. Fred Hoiberg's playing his son a little bit. How about that?
Coach Seth Greenberg, LaPhonso Ellis, John Brickley in studio tonight. Sorry for flipping through the yellow pages here, but we will get through the rest of the show. And let's talk about Michigan and Wisconsin, the game that you just saw go final here on ESPN2. A moment of silence prior to the game for all those who've been affected by the shootings at Michigan State. As for the game itself, these two teams on the bubble as it pertains to the NCAA tournament turned out to be a game of runs in the second half.
It really did. Wisconsin had a tough time scoring the basketball, but the freshman Connor Esigian, who's had a phenomenal freshman year, had 13 of his 21 in the second half.
It really came down to a game of free throw shooting at the end of the game. I mean, Wisconsin doesn't score in like the last 11 minutes of this game and still wins. And, you know, I think it's a good lesson. Hunter Dickinson, who's a very talented young guy, he should concern himself more with playing basketball than being a social media star. Focus on your team and don't bring attention to yourself.
Wisconsin goes to the final 10:38 without a made field goal, and they still pick up the win 64-59. So with that being said, Wisconsin, one of those teams on the bubbles. Who else but the man who literally wrote the book on bracketology joins us now, Joe Lunardi. Joe, you've got Wisconsin as a first four out going into this game against Michigan. How do you evaluate the Badgers after this game?
They're a tough nut to crack because they have a terrible net ranking of 80, Brick, coming into this game, but they have 5 quad one wins. That combination should be impossible, but we're going to move the Badgers in overnight. They'll be in the next bracket, and maybe we gave them a little too big of a punishment for losing at Nebraska after we saw what the Cornhuskers did tonight in Piscataway.
Joe, Tyler Wall was injured, and obviously he hasn't played to the level that he played with before his injury. Will that be taken into consideration with regard to Wisconsin?
No question about it. And now that we're seeing what they can be, beginning of a 3-game homestand, look, I think they passed the eye test. Now the number has to get just a little bit better for those committee members who lean on that a little too hard.
Joe, doesn't it come down to who you play, when you play, and where you play them? In the Big Ten especially, it's so hard to win on the road. So as you're evaluating these teams, and you know they got home games, if they hold serve, they're going to be in pretty good shape.
No question about it. But you mentioned holding serve at home. That's something that a lot of teams in the Big Ten haven't been able to do lately. We saw it tonight with Rutgers, and, you know, this game could have gone either way. But I do think Wisconsin will ultimately have enough good wins to get in the field.
All right, Joe, hang on. We're going to get back to you in just a moment. We want to turn the focus now to the Big East, probably the game of the night between Creighton and Providence. This game with a minute left to go. Bryce Hopkins with the layup. This is a Providence team, Coach, that lost all 5 starters from last year's Sweet 16 team.
They have 4 transfers starting this lineup. 3 of them scored 20 points or more. I'll tell you, Ed Crosswell, he gives him a physical presence with LaSalle transfers.
Yeah, and on a night where Jared Bynum didn't shoot the basketball well, to your point, Seth, they had 4 guys in the starting lineup, all scoring double figures. They're good defensively. I like this Providence team.
Ed Cooley's as good a coach as there is in college basketball. His team plays as hard and as tough and as physical and as connected as any team in the country.
Eduary it is. The defending regular season Big East champs. Noah Locke putting a bow on it for Providence. Get their 4th quad one win in double overtime over Creighton. The Big East, Joe, is really, to me, very underestimated coming into this year. We look at 4 teams separated by 1 game. What does a game like this do for both sides moving forward?
Very tight at the top, as you mentioned. And this is the kind of game that almost helps both teams. It's certainly not going to hurt the Blue Jays. They came in as a 5. They'll stay as a 5. Providence will be moving up to a 7. And they've been in that range and a little bit better earlier in the year. I think both of these teams have second weekend potential in the NCAA tournament.
A Creighton team that prior to that loss to Providence had won 8 in a row. Joe Lunardi, always a pleasure for stopping by here on College Basketball Live. Thank you very much for the time. Want to get to some other news as well from around not only college basketball but the world of sports. In the wake of Monday's tragic shootings at Michigan State, the Spartans are postponing all athletic events scheduled for Wednesday, including both men's and women's basketball games. Michigan State said new dates for all 3 games will be announced at a later time. Meanwhile, New Mexico State has fired first-year coach Greg Hare days after the school canceled the remainder of the team's season upon learning of hazing allegations involving Aggies players. Chancellor Dan Arvizu said in a letter to the school community that Hare was informed of the decision on Tuesday afternoon. The following statement reads, "As I've stated previously, hazing has no place on our campus, and those found responsible will be held accountable for their actions. I am committed to the safety and well-being of all members of our campus community, as well as to the integrity of our university. Any further decisions regarding the remainder of the coaching staff will be made after additional investigations are concluded." Still to come, a big night in the Big 12. Kansas has got Baylor on Saturday, but first they'd have to overcome Oklahoma State in Stillwater. And Kansas State, a top 4 team, right now trending downwards.